Welcome, everyone. My special guest today is Gregorio Fontino, who is the brand manager with the winery. Ciao, Gregorio.
Hello, everyone.
Vite Colte in Barolo. And we're going to talk about their range of wines today. And they are Tre Bicchieri winners for their Barolo, but they make an entire range of wines from Piemonte, not just Barolo and Barbaresco, but Barbera and Dolcetto, and they also make things like Moscato d'Asti and Barachetto, so a really well-rounded portfolio. But what people should know, and I think this is a fascinating subject, is that Vite Colte is a cooperative winery.
Exactly.
And I don't know, outside of Produttori del Barbaresco, I don't think too many people are familiar with a cooperative winery in Barbaresco. People that know Italian wines, they think of cooperatives and they think of Alto Adige, but they don't think about Piemonte too much. So Gregorio, we have a lot of time. Let's talk about that. About, first of all, when was Vite Colte established? You are a cooperative, and this is a line of wines from the cooperative Terra del Vino.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Terra del Vino was established in 1980. Okay, so now it's 40 years old. But the Vite Colte project started only 10 years ago. Okay, the wines of Vite Colte started to be on the market only 5 years ago. So we had 5 years of programmation, of selection of the best vineyards and the best viticulturists, and then after 5 years we started the project with the wines on the market. Okay, so only in the 2015. But the project, as I told you before, it started 10 years ago. And yes, I know that abroad, Coop wineries from Piedmont are not so famous as like the Alto Adige ones, but we share many similarities with Alto Adige in terms of terroir, in terms also of society and of land, the owners of the land. I mean, Coop wineries are important in territories where there are many small owners with very few pieces of land. No, and in Piedmont is like this, as for example in Alto Adige. If you go to Tuscany, you will see very big estates with many vineyards.
Yes.
Like, for example, castles with hectares, hundreds of hectares of land around them. No?
Yes.
And if you come here to Piedmont instead, you will see small farmhouses with few pieces of land. Okay, so the society and how the territory is structured and owned is very important. Is a very important factor to consider. And yes, in Piedmont there is a very high fragmentation of the land, meaning that there are many viticulturists, many wine growers with very small pieces of land. And this is why a co-op winery is important and cooperative wineries are important. Exactly. Vite Colte is a co-op winery, a little bit different from Produttori del Barbaresco. Produttori del Barbaresco is, first of all, it has a huge history compared to Terra del Vino. Because Terra del Vino was born 40 years ago, Vite Colte only 10 years ago, Produttori del Barbaresco has 100 years of history. But there are other differences. For example, Produttori del Barbaresco is specialized in the Barbaresco, so in the Nebbiolo grape cultivated in the Barbaresco area. Vite Colte instead is a little bit different because we are in Barolo, the winery and the facilities are in Barolo, but the vineyards are all around the Piedmont. So we have many different grape varieties and terroirs. For example, we start with the Gavi, and we go to the Monferrato with the Barbera and other varieties, and we go up north to Caluso with the Erba Luce. No? So we have many different grape varieties, and this is challenging. It's very challenging because the winemaker and his colleagues have to manage different grape varieties. Also, the agronomists have to manage different grape varieties and face different challenges every year.
How many agronomists do you have working for?
We have one main agronomist that is called Daniele Eberle. He is truly one of the most important agronomists in Piedmont, but also in Italy. This guy is around 50 years old, but is at least 30 years that he's working as an agronomist, and not only with us, but also with universities, and is doing many research projects, not only at regional level, but also European level. So he is truly one of the most knowledgeable person about grape varieties from Piedmont. So it's really a great professional. And other than him, we have other 3 people that help him, and they manage all the vineyard and all the properties owned by our wine growers.
And what's the total number of vineyards, of hectares that you work with, and how many wine growers do you have?
For the Vite Colte project, we are selected 300 vineyards and owned by 180 wine growers.
300 hectares?
Yeah, 300.
Okay.
Yeah, and it seems a big number, okay, but if you think that we have only small pieces in many different places,
right,
you change your point of view. Because, for example, in the Monferrato area for the Barbera, it is the area where we have the most vineyard. We have 60 hectares of land. Here in Barolo, we have around 15. Okay, in the Gavi area, around 40. So it's 300 in total is a lot, but they are only small pieces, very selected carefully in different parts of Piedmont. We started with Terra d'Avino manages around 5,000 hectares in Piedmont. Okay, it's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to choose from 5,000 hectares only the best. Okay, and we ended up with 300 hectares.
Okay.
This means that less than the 10% of the vineyards were selected for the Vite Colte project.
Right.
Okay? Right. And we started from the vineyard, the total vineyard managed by Terra d'Avino. That is not a low level, because Terra d'Avino is only making DOC and DOCG wines from Piedmont. Okay, so Terra d'Avino is already a high level, a medium high level of quality, no? Because we only make DOC and DOCG bottled wines, no EGT, no bulk wine and stuff like that. Okay? Right. Only bottled wines, DOC and DOCG. And from that base, we selected only the best. Okay, so with Vite Colte, for the Vite Colte project, we really ended up with the best that was possible, and was a very strict selection.
Now, I'm curious, because I mentioned, and we'll talk about these wines, you know, you make the traditional wines from the Langhe, such as Barolo and Barbaresco and Barbera and Dolcetto. You mentioned Gavi, you mentioned Erba Luce. I know you also make some sparkling like Alta Langa and
exactly,
other things like that. When you're doing your marketing, whether you or your team are doing your marketing, and especially in other countries, whether it be the United States or Russia or Scandinavia or Japan or China, I mean, does that make it difficult? I mean, I imagine there's some countries that are going to love Gavi and other countries may not care too much about Gavi. Probably everybody wants Barolo, but how does that, how do you manage all that? It seems to be a very difficult
it's very difficult, and this is challenging because you have to understand every market and their needs, okay? Because every market has different needs, not only about grape varieties, what they prefer, but also, for example, the packaging, the bottles, okay? Different markets have different bottles. They want, for example, a screw cap or cork and so on. The commercial director is a very knowledgeable person.
I hope he gets paid well because he's got a difficult job, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to manage and to know. And fortunately, we have a good staff. I mean, we are a structured winery. There are around 30 people working here. Consider the people that are working in the cellar, the winemakers, the agronomists, and the people that do the sales. Now we are 30 people, so we are quite structured. There are many wineries that are bigger than us, but we have a good staff. Yeah.
And what percentage of your, first of all, what's the total production for the Vite Colte wines?
Just for the Vite Colte, we are around 1 million bottles, maybe something less. So it's not a big production. Because if you think about many wineries that most of the people think that are small, they are making 2 or 3 million bottles. Like if you think about, for example, I don't know, something, Donna Fugata, for example. Okay, many people say, "Oh, this is a quite small winery." No, instead, it's quite big. You know, they are making a good production. No, just for saying one. We are just a little less than 1 million with Vite Colte, and Terre d'Avino in total is 5 million.
Okay, and just for the Vite Colte wines, what is the percentage of export? How much of that? What percentage of the wines do you export?
At the moment, it is around the 60%, and we are serving mainly developed markets, like for example Germany, UK, USA. Not so much in a new market like for example Asia. We are not doing a lot of sales there. Especially markets where people can appreciate the value for money and is quite skilled about selecting wines and knowing the characteristics of the wines now. So.
Okay, I'm going to put up a picture here of the actual winery building, and I'm sure people that are watching this, whether it's live or recording, will recognize this building. But this is as you're driving south to head into the town of Barolo, just before you get there, one of the two roads.
Exactly.
Road, high road. And it's this striking red building. So when was that structure built?
In the year 2000.
Okay. And you obviously hired a very talented...
20 years ago, yes.
Okay.
And then we are right at the foot of the Cannubi Hill. So, yeah, it's a nice place. Over there, you can see Cerequio and Brunate, two other important crews. You can see also the village on the top, on the right hill. On the top is La Morra. Yeah. On the other side, on the right for me is the other side. Yeah.
Yes.
And there is La Morra, and there is in the other hill that is a little bit higher is Il Dente di La Morra, so the foot of La Morra. That is the highest point in the denomination. And there, yeah, we were in a very good place. It's a quite structured and we can say big winery, and to be so big to be in that place is something that no many other wineries can do.
Okay. And I'll just put up a couple other pictures of the interior of the winery, which you can describe very quickly.
Yeah, this is our barricaia, where we have our barriques. Most of the wine that is aged in those barriques is La Luna in Falò, that is our Barbera d'Asti Superiore. That is our flagship wine. This year is the only wine awarded with the Tre Bicchieri by the Gambero Rosso. Okay, so it's the only Barbera d'Asti Superiore that reached the top with the Gambero Rosso. We are really proud about this wine. And yes, it is aged in those barriques. Those barriques are French barriques coming from Bordeaux. We have a couple of producers there that give us these barriques, and we use barriques 3-4 years at maximum, and then we throw it away.
Okay.
And yeah,
another photo here which we'll put up, also inside the winery.
Yeah, this is inside the winery. This part here is underground. Okay, so in this place we are under a hill, and this is very important for the temperature and the humidity control. So being under the ground helps us to reduce all the costs of the energy and for keeping the temperature and the humidity under control. On the left side of the image, you can see the big barrels where we age the Barolo and the Barbaresco. 50 hectoliters.
50,
yeah.
Okay, 50 hectoliters.
Yeah. Okay. And on the right side, instead, there are some pictures and some writings, some paintings. And this is part of our guided tour where all the people that come to visit our winery pass through and can read about all the operation that we do in the winery.
Right.
Our winery is something that I want to say that I'm very proud of, is that our winery is open 7 days a week, okay, at least 12 hours a day, and all the different parts of our winery can be visited by our visitors. So everything is open, and this is very important because, if you remember the picture that we have seen before, the one in the Barricaia, there is a pathway that passes through all the winery, and this let all the people that visit us see everything, okay? Because in most of the winery, of course, you don't have a pathway that passes above all the facilities, so you cannot enter in some rooms and in some places because people are working there. In our winery, thanks to the pathway, you pass through all the different rooms. Yeah, you can see it very clearly here. There is a pathway to pass above the barriques. And this is very nice because people can enter and look around every time of the day, every day of the week, and can see people working there. So we like to say that we don't hide anything because being open 7 days a week, every day, at every time, and people can pass through every part of the winery, people can see everything that we do, and we are very proud of this thing.
That's great. Is there a charge for people to go on this tour, or is it free?
Excuse me?
Is there a cost for the tour, or do people they do it for free?
Yeah, it's a cost, but compared to the other wineries in zone here in the place, is not so high because it's around 8 euros. So yeah, like $10.
Yeah, that's nothing. Well,
and you also have a glass of Barbera.
Well, there you go. Well, that even without the Barbera, that would be a good price. But with the Barbera,
exactly.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Tre Bicchieri because I think that again, we talked about cooperatives right from the start, and people know Alto Adige, and those are the best wines. And people think of Piemonte, and they think of the best wines. They think of small producers, small family-run producers. Yeah, so I think it's great that we've been getting that recognition from Gamboroso and from other Italian publications and American publications as well, and publications around the world. So,
yeah, and this is very important for us, and this is something that we should have done in the past. All the cooperative wineries, all the coop wineries in Piedmont should have done times ago because we lost some time, and now we are trying to get back on the track.
I'm curious. You don't have to mention any names, but how many other cooperative wineries are there in the Langhe?
In the Langhe, not so many. Okay, we are around 5 to 10. Okay. But in total in Piedmont, I think around 30, 40 coop wineries.
Right, so and that's mostly up like in Alto Piemonte, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the Terre d'Avino is the biggest one in Piedmont because it manages 5,000 hectares. You have to consider that in total in Piedmont, we have around 45,000 hectares of vineyard. Okay, in total. Terre d'Avino is managing around 10%.
Yeah, that's huge.
Okay?
That's
of the total vineyard of Piedmont.
I didn't realize you had that much. That's amazing. So
yeah, exactly, right. Exactly.
Well, let's start to talk about the wines a little bit. And one of the things I'm interested in, I've tried many of them, not all of them, but one of the things I'm interested in looking again on the website was that you produced 3 different versions of Gavi.
Yeah.
If you could talk about that and about the difference of the wines, and also how it sells for you, because I remember years ago when I was learning about Piemonte, I mean, there wasn't a Timorasso or Royal Arneis was just starting to become known, and so Gavi was like the most popular white wine. Now it's become, at least in the United States, something that's sort of an oddity. It isn't that well known, and not many people follow it. But it's a lovely wine. So tell us about the three different types of Gavi you make.
Yeah, we have one Gavi DOCG and two Gavi di Gavi DOCG. So the main difference is that one is only the denomination is made of the 11 villages where you can produce the Gavi. Okay, so the grapes are coming from vineyards in different villages. Okay, so it's like the classic Barolo version of and the cruise. The Gavi di Gavi are the cruise. So the vineyards are only in the village of Gavi, okay, not in different village of the denomination, but only in the village of Gavi. That is supposed to give the best version of the Gavis, the most complex ones. The difference between the two Gavis that are Gavi di Gavi is that one of them makes the malolactic fermentation, and the other one is not making the malolactic fermentation. Right. So one will be slightly more crispy and with a little bit high acidity, and the other one will be a little bit more round.
Okay.
So the Masseria dei Carmelitani is the one that is not making the malolactic fermentation.
And do any of them receive oak aging, or are they all just stainless steel?
No, not oak aging, only steel. So you will taste very fresh, fruity, and floral white. Gavi is not a wine that impresses you for the intensity or the complexity, but it will impress you for its elegance and its balance and its roundness.
Right. Okay. Now you also make other whites such as Sauvignon.
Yeah, the Sauvignon is in Italy is our most sold wine.
Really?
Incredible. Yes, oh. Sauvignon from Piedmont. Yeah. And for me, it's an incredible white, and this is thanks to all the work that we do in the vineyard, because Sauvignon is a quite complex variety to manage in the vineyard, because you have to be very careful, because the techniques that you use to cultivate it influence a lot the notes, the aromas that the Sauvignon will have in the glass at the end. For example, something really important is the maturation. Okay, if you harvest the Sauvignon very early, you will have many green aromas like herbs, like pepper, and so on, pepper bell. If you harvest it a little bit more late in the season, with some weeks, not so much, maybe a couple of weeks after, you will get more fruit aromas, more tropical fruit, for example. So in our Sauvignon, the Sauvignon Tra Donne Sole, what we do is having two different harvesting. Okay, so we harvest some vineyards when it's a little bit more green, and in some vineyards when it's more ripe. Then we do two separate vinification to get different aromas, and then we blend the two wines that we have to have the actual Sauvignon, the one that is named Tra Donne Sole. And in this way, we have a very round and complex Sauvignon with not intensity of only one single note, but with a good aromas, with a good bouquet. And it's a wine that is selling a lot in Italy, yes, in every part of Italy.
That's great to hear, because I know you also produce a Chardonnay, and most people would think, well, Chardonnay is always going to sell better than Sauvignon, but that's not the case, is it?
Yeah, it's not the case. Even if our Chardonnay, I mean, it's a very complex Chardonnay, and also this one is made with a particular technique, because it's aged in oak barrels, but only for a 15%. So it's a Chardonnay that is not too oak, is not too fresh. I mean, too simple. It's something in the middle with a good balance between primary notes and tertiary notes given by the wood. And yes, it's very interesting. And also it's 14% of alcohol, so quite strong and
okay.
Yeah, with a good body.
And then 3 other whites you make are, of course, Gavi and Arneis, which has become extraordinarily popular in the United States.
Yeah, it's getting more and more popular, taking some space to the Gavi. Gavi is maybe going a little bit low, a little bit down, and Arneis is taking some space from him.
Okay. And then Erbaluce, which you mentioned before, Erbaluce di Caluso from Alto Piemonte.
Yeah, exactly. This is a variety not so well known, I think, around the world. In Italy is also in Italy is not well known in all the parts of Italy. It's very small production. I mean, if you think about it, in the world is a tiny piece of Piedmont, really. And yeah, but it's a great wine because Erbaluce is a wine that can age, is a white that can age for long, so it gets very complex. It's a wine with a nose that can reach very interesting level of complexities. And also with Erbaluce you can do many different things, not only still whites, but also sparklings, also passito, so the served wines. So it's a very interesting grape variety, and we are doing it as simple as possible, only in still, to get all the aromas from the variety. And yeah, it's a wine that is not, so well known. There are not many, we don't make many bottles, but it's an interesting thing, yes. And I think that in the future you will get a lot of popularity if the Timorasso will not take all the attention.
Well, right now it's taking all the attention. I talked to one producer of Timorasso, and he said, you know, if I tasted it with every journalist that wanted to write about it, I wouldn't have any wine left. I mean, there's just so many, there's so many people interested in it right now. Are there
exactly. And the Timorasso is very small, as like the Erbaluce di Caluso appellation are very, very small. Like we are talking about 100 of hectares, not so much.
Exactly, yeah. Does Vite Colte have any plans to produce a Timorasso, or not really?
At the moment, no, because we don't have many wine growers inside the winery that have vineyards in place. But maybe in the future is something that we are considering it, but not in the next days, in the next
vineyard. Yes. And I agree with your comments on the Erbaluce. I've been to that area a couple times, and yeah, they make lovely sparkling wines with such good acidity to that variety. And
exactly,
you said white wines distilled, white wines aged in oak, passito, but I'm not sure it will ever really become very popular here. Like you said, now the Timorasso is becoming very, a kind of a very strong buzzword, as we put it in the United States. It's, there's so much attention paid to Timorasso that Erbaluce doesn't have much of a chance right now. But the wines are lovely.
Yeah, and another important thing is that in the Timorasso, there are a couple of producers that are not only very good producers, but also very good marketing men. I mean, they are doing a lot of job for the denomination, for the appellation, to promote it in a very good way. So I have a lot of respect for them, because they are growing an appellation that is really small, that 10 years ago nobody knew. Now everyone is talking about it, not only for the quality of the wine, of course, but also because they are doing a very good job in promoting it.
Right, and then if I can mention one producer, when you have someone like Luca Corrado at Vite, who's extraordinarily well known, is a very famous winery. They're not in the area, but when they start to produce a Timorasso, that it's going to become even more popular. So
yeah, of course. Yeah. The first one, of course, is Massa. He's the one that started everything.
Exactly.
Everyone should pay respect to him, first of all, and then all the big names that came after him. They are also,
That's just it. One producer told me he's the godfather of.
Yeah, exactly.
Timorasso, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, you make a Langhe Favorita, which is basically it's the same grape as Vermentino, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Same grape. As you know, here in Italy, we have many different varieties, but the complexity is not only there because we have many different varieties, but varieties with different names also. The same variety with different names. So the picture is very, very complex.
Yes,
And yes, in fact, Favorita is the same thing as Vermentino, and we produce it in Piedmont. Vermentino is something that you can taste, and you have many different producers doing it in Liguria, in Sardinia, for example. But you know, Piedmont and Liguria are very close, so there are many producers of Favorita in Piedmont. And we are doing it, and Favorita is a very easy, approachable wine that you can drink really every day. It's very fresh and yeah, very, very easygoing.
Okay. Let's move on to the red wines. Actually, let's talk about the sparkling first of all, because you make Alta Longa, and these are some of my favorite sparkling wines in all of Italy. I mean, they have very good acidity, maybe not as high as the wines from Trentino, the Trento Doc, but these are lovely wines, elegant, and they have to be Chardonnay and Pinot Nero. So tell us about Alta Longa.
Alta Longa is an appellation that is growing very fast, okay? That is getting very, very popular in Italy first, but also abroad. I think that the fact is that the terroir is perfect for making sparkling because the Alta Longa is quite a little bit higher than the Lange, okay? Of course, Alta in English is high, okay? So it stands for high Lange, no? It's very, very simple as that. And yeah, we have a very high altitude there that is perfect for making sparkling wines. And another important thing is that it's not so easy to grow so fast. An appellation is not easy, no, to grow as the Alta Longa is growing. And this is thanks to the fact that in the terroir, in the territory, there are many big wineries, many big names, okay, important wineries, maybe that at the moment are making Barolo, Barbaresco, and Barberas, no, but they have all the potential to make great sparkling, you know. They have all the structure, they have all the knowledge to start a new appellation and make it growing fast, no. If you are in a territory where there are not important wineries with maybe not so knowledge, also resources, no, to do it.
Yes.
But, yeah, it's and another thing that is important is also the consorzio. Okay, so the board direction of the appellation is working very well, and if you look at the rules of the appellation, they are the stricter rules for this classic method. They are the stricter rules of any classic method appellation in Italy. Okay. For example, Alta Longa should be aged for 30 months on the lees. That is even more longer than the Trento Doc, no? That at the moment is the leader classic method appellation.
That's even longer than Champagne. I mean, if you just put out the basic non-vintage brut.
Exactly.
And most also do more than that, but that's the law. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, and also the altitude of the vineyards is something that is written on the appellation. Okay, so also this is an important factor because you cannot produce Alta Longa in the flatland, but you have to start at 250 meters, no?
Okay.
So it's quite high, higher than the average of the Franciacorta appellation, for example. And this is really important to get, because if an appellation has from the entry-level wines a very good quality, okay, this is really important, no? Because even if you taste the entry-level wine of the appellation, you get a very good wine, no? And this is important to promote, especially in the first part of the life of an appellation, no? To promote it around the world. And we are proud to say that all our vineyards are between 500 and 600 meters above sea level. Okay,
that's very high, huh?
So very high, very high. And thanks to that, we can get a.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Sorry, Tom. Thanks to that, we can get a very fresh style of Alta Langa with a very good acidity, and also the aromas are clear and with also a good complexity, no? Thanks to also the temperature difference between night and day that you get at high altitudes.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I tried with another producer last week, and you talk about getting really clear aromas. That real nice purity you get of Pinot Noir or Chardonnay comes from these high elevations. So I was told too that this area is about maybe about 10 miles south of where the Barolo area ends.
Yeah, most of all, yes. Going south.
South, right?
Exactly. To Liguria, no? To be clear.
Right, you have that influence of the sea also. And I was told also that because it's cool there, because it's a higher elevation, that there are some people from Piemonte, whether they work in wine or not, live in the Langhe, they have summer homes in the Alta Langhe, right? Because it's a little bit cooler, get very hot.
Exactly. And another interesting thing about the environment is that the Alta Langa is still very untouched by the human, no? It's still a little bit wild, no?
Right.
If you come here in the Langhe, you see that every hill is covered by vineyard, no? Of course. And I mean, this place is UNESCO World Heritage. But if you want to see how the Langhe were maybe 68 years ago, you go to Alta Langa, and it's very similar to what the Langhe was in the past, because of course there are some vineyards, but not here like in the Langhe, but you can also see, for example, forests and other cultivations. So it's very interesting to see. Yeah, it's very rural.
That's it. That's a good point. Okay, and let's move on to the fuller bodied red wines. And you mentioned the wine you won the Tre Bicchieri for this year, the Barbera d'Asti Superiore, La Luna e il Falò.
Oh yes, this is my favorite wine. It's a flagship wine.
I had to look that up. Falò, I guess, means bonfire in Italian.
Yeah, exactly.
How did that wine? So the moon and the bonfire. How did that wine get its name?
It's very strange. So this wine is named after a book of Cesare Pavese. Okay. Cesare Pavese, for the ones that I think that are very few people that don't know him, is a Nobel Prize award winner that was born here in Piedmont and in the last century. And during all his life wrote about the rural people of Piedmont, about the wine growers, about the farmers of Piedmont, the poor people from Piedmont. Nowadays, if you come here to Piedmont, I think that most of the richest people are wine growers nowadays.
Right.
In the past, it was not like that. And until 50 years ago, the life here in Piedmont was very tough. And many people were suffering from famine and disease and so on. They were very, very poor, especially after World War II. And he wrote in his books he described the life of these people. And the most important book from Cesare Pavese is La Luna e Falò. Okay. And we wanted to thank him, naming our wine after his book, because we are a co-op winery. No, we are made of small wine growers, many families, from Piedmont, small wine growers that are making the same thing that were doing their ancestors, and we are representing them with our wines. And so we wanted to thank Cesare Pavese for his book, naming our wine in this way. And La Luna e Falò, the moon and bonfire, is important not only for this reason, but the title has a meaning very, very important for the wine, because in the past the moon, was like the calendar for the wine growers. Right. They made the wine thanks to the moon phases. They programmed everything thanks to the moon phases, and the bonfire instead were the the moment of we can say parties, okay, in the villages, when they wanted to celebrate something, they started a bonfire in the middle of the village to celebrate, to having like a celebration. So, and during this celebration, many of these celebrations were bounded to for example, the harvesting time and so on, no? So very connected to the rural times of the life,
okay.
no?
Right.
So yeah, this is the meaning is very interesting for me.
Then that's a nice story. And you have a nizza, which of course is now with the rules you don't even have to call it Barbera anymore. You just call it nizza. But what's the difference on the nizza and the La Luna e Faro?
So the Barbera d'Asti denomination, appellation, is it clear if I say appellation or denomination? Is it better?
Either way.
Either way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think most people use appellation, but that's fine.
Okay. So the Barbera d'Asti appellation is quite big, with more than 100 villages inside. So it's a very big part of Piedmont. The Nizza di OCG instead, in the past was like a subzone of the Barbera d'Asti, okay? Now became a proper appellation and is very, very small, is only 11 villages, okay? So it is considered like the heart of the appellation for the Barbera, okay? The place where the vineyards are in the best condition, in the best places, and you can grow the best Barberas. The interesting thing is that all our vineyards are inside the Nizza appellation, okay? So even though the vineyards for the Barbera d'Asti Superiore could be named Nizza di OCG, okay? That vineyards could be inside the Nizza appellation, no? Because they are between Nizza Monferrato, Agliano Terme, Castelnuovo Calcea, that are villages inside the Nizza di OCG appellation. But the La Luna e Falò started to be produced 30 years ago, and people get used to it as a Barbera d'Asti Superiore, okay? So we didn't want to change it, so we kept the Barbera d'Asti Superiore La Luna e Falò, and we also did a version of Nizza, more or less in the same vineyards that we are doing the La Luna e Falò, okay, in the same places, but as a Nizza di OCG, okay? To make two different versions.
Right.
Another small differences between the two is that the Nizza di OCG, we collect the grapes a week or a couple of weeks later, okay? So you get more concentration, and also the aging process is a little bit longer. But the vineyard position is more or less the same.
And are these both aged in barrique?
Yeah. Okay. La Luna e Falò is aged only in barrique. La Luna e Falò Barbera d'Asti Superiore appellation is aged for 1 year, and we use 3 different types of barriques. 1/3 are new, 1/3 are the 2nd year, and 1/3 are the 3rd year. This is to balance perfectly the amount of food, notes, and aromas given to the wine. Okay.
Right. And what's the production level on these wines? How many bottles?
Around 150,000 bottles.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, let's move on to, I know you make some other things, but let's move on to Nebbiolo now. So you make a Langhe Nebbiolo, you make d'Alba. You also make Barbaresco called La Casa in Collina. Is that from a number of different communes in Barbaresco, or only from Barbaresco commune?
Yeah, the La Casa in Collina is coming from different villages, different vineyards, all in Barbaresco. La Casa in Collina is another book from Cesare Pavese, so it's another.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We have 5 wines coming from that. All the names are coming from books of Cesare Pavese, and we have La Casa in Collina, and we also have another Barbaresco that is called the Spezie, that is our Riserva.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah, and I'm really in love with that wine because we make the Riservas of Barbaresco and Barolo only in the best vintages, okay? So, first of all, we don't produce the Barolo Essenze that you can see behind me and the Barbaresco Spezie are not produced every year, okay? Only in good vintages. For example, the 14, that for some producer was not so good, for some others was quite good, okay? But it's not like the 16 that was good and perfect for everyone,
exactly.
no?
Okay.
So in the 14, for example, we didn't produce the Essenze line, okay? But for the Riserva, we do something more, okay? We produce the Riserva only in the best vintages, okay? So only 2 or 3 times every 10 years. And the Barbaresco Spezie, that is our outer Barbaresco that we produce the Casa in Collina, that is our classic Barbaresco, and then we produce the Barbaresco Spezie, that is the Riserva, okay? Now we are selling the vintage 08, that is something, in my opinion, incredible, has a complexity that is very, very, very interesting.
I would love to try that one because I'm a huge fan of 2008. Yeah. I thought it was just a classic Piemontese vintage. Structure, acidity, lovely wines.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, at the moment, in my opinion, is in a perfect shape. Is giving all his potential now. So I'm really into that wine at the moment. When I have the chance, I drink it.
You export that wine? Do you have enough of it to export to the United States, or does it stay in Italy?
Yes. We are exporting. Also, our importer in Chicago, Classic Wine Selection, has it and is working very well with it. And it's a great wine. And another important thing that it can sound strange is that at the moment we are selling a 08, okay? But we like to keep our reservas a little longer than the average producer do, okay? So we release it after 10 years usually. Because we want, as you know, Nebbiolo needs time, no? And we want to release it when is the correct time to be on the market.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it's in Chicago. I'll have to talk to Patrick about that. So see if we can get together for dinner and have a bottle. So I look forward to it. And then what you've become known for these last few years, this label, the Essenze Barolo, and you make 3 different versions, I believe that are all
3 different
ones: Comune di Barolo, Comune di Serralunga d'Alba, and Comune di Monforte. So tell us about how this project came about.
Yeah, so Essenze in English is translated as essences, okay?
Essence, right.
Yeah, and so with this project we wanted to enlighten the different characteristics of the most important villages of the Barolo denomination, okay? So here in Barolo, we have a strange type of classification of the crus and the best, we can say, subzones of the denomination, okay?
MGA, right.
MGA, okay. The so-called MGA, the so famous MGA. So inside the MGAs, we have both vineyards, we have parts of those vineyards, and we also have villages, okay? So it's a quite complex scheme, as all Italy, of course.
I was going to say that.
As everything coming from Italy is quite complex.
Too.
Exactly.
Right.
And with the project, we wanted to enlighten not the characteristics of the crus, that is something that many producers are doing, making their Barolos as a single crus, as a single MGAs. But we wanted to enlighten more the characteristics of the soil and of the terroir of the different villages. So at the moment, we are focused on in our opinion, 3 main villages that are Barolo, of course, Serralunga and Monforte, and that have distinctive characteristics. For example, Barolo is an expression of the Barolo coming from Barolo is an expression of Barolo more elegant than the others. Serralunga is more powerful, and Monforte instead is more complex, or in my opinion, is the one that can be aged for longer, so it can develop more aromas and complexity. And it's very interesting because this project is very didactic, in my opinion. For consumers that are approaching to the Barolo world, okay, to the Barolo appellation, it's a good start to starting to understand the main characteristics of the different villages, of the different zones of the Barolo appellation.
Yes.
Maybe before going to the single crews that are another level of complexity, you know?
Right. Now, with these three wines, with Barolo, Serralunga, and Monforte, are they all released at the same time, or do you release different years at different times? Or?
The Barolo is released some months before than the others, because it's the one that is ready a little bit earlier than the others. Barolo, the average altitude of the vineyards is a little bit lower, okay? So it's warmer, and the grapes are ready before, and the wine is ready before, usually. Monforte is the highest. Serralunga has the soil that gives more, we can say, power and also tannins to the wine. So those two needs a little bit more time than the Barolo, from Barolo. This project is very interesting, and it's also interesting because all the winemaking techniques that we do for these three wines are the same, okay? The only thing that changes is that the Barolo, when it's bottled, then is released a little bit before. But regarding maceration time and type of foods used, the type of dimension of the vats that we use, all are the same, okay? So you can get the clear expression of three different parts of Barolo without different intervention of the, we can say, winemaker, no?
Of man, right?
They are coming from different places. All the winemaking process, all the vinification is pretty much the same. So you can clearly get different characteristics of the three different.
And for the aging on these wines, is it a combination of large and small and mid-sized oak, or
it's all large, okay? It's all big barrels.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, big botti. Of course, if you have some like 225 liters that cannot stay inside the big barrel, you put it on the small one, of course.
Okay.
But you cannot throw it away, of course.
Right.
And you cannot use it an empty a big barrel. But yeah, they are big barrels. They are made in big barrels, and we only use French oak. And the maceration time is between 20 to 30 days. It depends on the vintage. So we can say that is like more a traditional style, no, more in that way. Okay?
Yes.
So big botti, and even if today talking about traditional modern style is not something.
Yeah, it's not like
it's not important nowadays. I mean,
yeah, it's not like it was 30, 40 years ago when you hit.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Nowadays there is a mixture. Everyone is doing a mixture of the two styles now. So talking about traditional or modern styles is not really. It doesn't make sense now anymore. But yes, if we have to imagine something, we are more in the traditional way.
Okay. And the last question, I've tried the three wines. I tried the newly released 2016, the Barolo, the Comune di Barolo, or the Monforte and the Serralunga. I tried 2015. So I know there were two very different vintages. Can you talk about those vintages?
Yeah. Starting with Barolo, as I told you before, is a little bit in a lower altitude than the others, and also the soil is different. Okay, here we have more limestone and clay, and in the others instead we have more sand. For example, in Serralunga we have a lot of sandstone. Monforte, we can say that is something in between, but the main characteristics that distinguish from the others is the altitude. Okay, Monforte is very, very high. Okay, so the temperature are quite lower. Okay, and with lower temperatures, the technological maturation arrives a little bit later. Okay, so this gives time to the phenological maturation to arrive at the right point. No, everyone knows that there are different types of maturation for the grape. Okay, there is the technological maturation, that is the one that regards sugars and acidity. Okay, and then there is, for example, the phenological maturation, the one that regards the phenols, the tannins. Okay,
right.
In Monforte, that is a little bit more lower in temperatures. The technological maturation arrives a little bit later in the year. Okay, giving time for the phenological maturation to be at the very good moment. Everyone knows that Nebbiolo is a late variety, okay? Right. Why is a late variety? It's a late variety because if you collect it too early during the year, you get too much green tannins, okay? So you have to give time to the Nebbiolo to ripe properly and to the tannins to ripe properly in order to do long maceration and have a lot of extraction, no? Because tannins are very important for the wines to give a body structure, but also for the longevity of the wines, because tannins are natural preservatives. No? So if you don't have a long extraction with a long maceration, you don't. You will have a wine that has no longevity. No. So Monforte, you have a very good quality. You have a good ripeness, thanks to this fact that the technological maturation is later in the year, and you have time to have a proper maturation of the tannins, a proper ripeness of the tannins. So you can also have a little bit longer maceration, more extraction, and so more tannins in the wines with a good ripeness means that the wines can age for longer than the others. Serralunga instead is a soil that is very, very poor. Sandstone is very, very poor. So it means that the wine is more alcoholic, more powerful, more richer. Yeah, if I can describe it in a word, Serralunga is powerful. And instead, Barolo, that is lower in altitude, with more clay and limestone inside, is more elegant, is ready before during the year. And these are the three main characteristics of these three villages, but we can say that are the three main characteristics of the three souls of the Barolo denomination appellation.
Great. Excellent answer. Okay, this was we've made it to just about the whole hour, so.
Oh, already?
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, it was fast. It was fast.
Exactly. Yeah. So I appreciate grazie per l'opportunità.
Grazie a te, Tom.
Last question. So you mentioned about tourists, and obviously, this has been a very strange year. But are the tourists back now? I know in the States we can't come, but you have people coming down from Switzerland and Germany and places like that.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly European, and some Italians that are doing their vacation here, their holidays here in Italy. Of course, they cannot go abroad, so they travel a lot. But yes, we can say that there are around 40% less tourists than average years.
Okay, well, but at least you have, it's 40% less, which is not good, but at least you have some tourists. So that's
of course,
encouraging. And this will be over hopefully soon. I'm not sure how soon, but nobody knows.
Yeah, and I want to come to visit you guys very soon. So
yeah, well, and
not only people coming here, but I also want to go abroad to see some of my friends that are now months that I cannot see.
Okay, well, it'll be great to see each other, and whether it's here in Chicago or there in Barolo. So thank you again, and
grazie, Tom.
And fingers crossed for a great harvest this year. So
yeah,
okay,
fingers crossed.
All right,
have a great day, Tom.
Buona giornata, ciao.
Ciao, buona giornata, ciao.